The shutter speed dial controls the amount of time the camera's shutter remains open during the exposure. The faster the shutter speed, the less light gets into the camera. On cameras with shutter speed dials like this one, shutter speeds are written as whole numbers 1, 2, 4, 8, 15, etc. However, these actually represent fractions of a second, so the shutter speed scale looks like this. Notice that these numbers follow the same progression as the ISO scale. If we move from the right to the left, we are multiplying each number by 2. If we move from the left to the right, we are dividing each number by 2. And then, to make them easier to remember and work with, these fractions are rounded off. So we get 1/15th of a second, 1/30th of a second, 1/60th of a second, etc. If we take 1 second as our starting point, the shutter speed scale goes two ways. For exposures longer than 1 second, we multiply by the ratio of 2. For exposures shorter than 1 second, we divide by 2. The important thing to note is that both ISO and shutter speed scale use the same common ratio, or in other words, as you move up or down the scale, the numbers are either halving or doubling. Shutter speeds control the amount of light getting into the camera, but they also allow us to control the amount of motion blur we record in our pictures. Let's consider two shutter speeds at the opposite ends of the shutter speed scale. If we use a fast shutter speed like 1/4000th of a second, we can completely freeze the movement of water of this fountain. If we use 1 second exposure, the water of the fountain will be rendered completely blurry. The water is rendered blurry because it is in motion. The statue remains sharp because it is not moving and the camera is supported on a tripod. If we try to use long shutter speeds whilst hand-holding the camera, we will end up with a blurry image. This image was shot with the camera handheld, with the shutter speed set to 1/4 of a second. In this instance, the image is blurry because our hands are not steady enough. In photography, 1/4 of a second is a long time. As a rule of thumb, when shooting handheld, your shutter should be set to 1/60th of a second or faster. If we use slow shutter speeds with moving subjects like in this example, even though the camera is supported on a tripod, because the shutter speed is set to 1/4 of a second, which is a very slow shutter speed, the moving subjects will be rendered blurry.